Hi everyone. So today I'd like to get a little more insight of my time working in my shortest job ever at the crummy hotel in Roppongi. So as we mentioned before, Jen and I, we both had pros and cons working here in Japan, Of course, like every country, there's no perfect job. There's good, there's bad, and there's the ugly. Well, this job was bad and the ugly. There's no good whatsoever in this job besides, getting to meet people, of course. So let's go ahead and go back and I'll tell you a couple of interesting situations that happened at the hotel when I was there. And this kind of led to me wanting to quit the whole tourist industry here in Japan. It doesn't necessarily have to do with the culture, being in Japan in general. It just had to do with the job and the type of clientele we have to deal with on a daily basis. So I originally got this job October of 2017 and I quit in March. So it was only about 5 or 6 months. I remember I passed the 6 month trial period and then I quit right after. So yeah, it was a shit show. But anyways, back to the story. So I got the job and I really did the first month in a branch in Tokyo Station. And I was training there and they showed me how to, do the register and how to close the system and do hotel reservation confirmations and so on. And then after that, they were building a new hotel in Roppongi. And myself, a girl, and then the district manager, and then a manager from Kyoto who came down. So there's four of us working in the hotel at that time. And what we had to do basically is we basically started the hotel from zero. So we had to, order all the bedding, make all the rooms, train all the staff. So that's why I went through the trial period is if I didn't know how to do this, I couldn't train the staff. So we trained the staff and at first it was a quiet hotel. We didn't get many customers during that time. We were still new. But as time went by, we got more and more customers due to being in Roppongi. We're actually across the road from one of the biggest clubs. So a lot of club clientele often came and stayed after work or before they went to the club and slept a little bit, or maybe they didn't catch their last train home or they didn't want to stay out all night. So we got those drunk clientele. But yeah, the job was very interesting, but a few instances really kind of stood out to me and it made me want to leave because I didn't want to get stabbed or killed or, trapped in an elevator. It sounds like a horror movie, but it's pretty a lot of crime went down there quite a bit. One instance that happened was, I mentioned in the previous video, was about a stabbing. So Roppongi is, if you've been in Japan, Roppongi. It's where, people go out and party and get knocked up and stuff like that. But one day, I just laughed thinking about this, but I remember one day I was coming into work and I was like, oh, someone spilled some paint in front of our hotel. That's interesting. That wasn't paint. Somebody supposedly got shanked with a knife in front of our hotel. And they're doing a police investigation. And that, I think a lot of Japanese people, especially businesses, don't want to be tied to crimes in Japan because they kind of feel that if we release information, you don't know who committed that crime. There's the bigger powers up there in Japan that commit crime and they didn't want to cause any problems with them. But yeah, so we ended up getting a problem with that. And, my boss was very strict. He didn't want to cause any problems because, he's from Osaka where a lot of those so-called hood rats live. So he didn't want to cause any trouble. So he just kind of said, no, let's not give the police any information. Let's just do it by the book. And then if they come and ask for recording, let them talk to me. I'm not a good employee because, as for one, I'm being a foreigner in Japan. I'm I don't want to get in trouble with the police. I don't want to get deported. So the police knew that. They know they had a little bit of power over me. So they actually asked me for my shift. And every time they needed to come collect, video footage or ask questions to people, they always came when I was on shift. And that was the first sign I didn't want to work in a hotel because I'm well, what would happen if one of those people got shanked, crawled up into the hotel and they're bleeding everywhere? I don't know how to deal with that. Or even worse, what if the guy who shanked them came up and wanted to shank me? So I was no, thank you. The second story was actually around maybe after opening for about 4 months. We had this we had a lot of weird people, but we had this guy who was crazy, I would say. He was an older gentleman and he often sang at night. The thing about capsule hotels is you're literally in a capsule and people can hear anything you do. They could literally be snoring and you can hear that person down the hall. So this person had a lot of complaints, right? So we do have a system in place saying like this customer is hard to deal with, be careful. So when other branches check them in, they know what they're dealing with. But this guy supposedly, like, he didn't do anything bad when at nighttime. So what happened is he slept all day but was up all night, which is kind of weird. I'm like, does this guy even work? Like, what is he? And my God, there's more than one crazy guy. We had like three, but I'll go to the other two later. So one guy, so what he did anyways, is most of our cleaning staff are women. A lot of them are like, you know, housewives or like young students. And they come on in the daytime to clean the rooms, and like they each clean one floor. It takes about a couple of hours and they head home. So supposedly while I was out of the office, this crazy guy somehow snuck onto the women's floor, and he like attacked a bunch of women. Like he actually like assaulted like a woman, and then he assaulted our maid. And I remember my boss telling me about it, and I saw the video footage, and like my boss had to like like basically manhandle him because he wanted to fight my boss. And like they actually like manhandled him and like held him to the ground and like tied him up until the police showed up to arrest him. So after I saw that, and my boss was like, you know, you have to be careful because you might have to do this in the future. I'm like, I'm not busting no asses here. I'm not no like, you know, Charlie's Angel. I don't got time for this. If anything, I'm gonna get busted up because I'm weak. There is that. And then there's this other guy who actually had like a whole page of warnings. And this guy was well, no, there's no question marks. He was gay, and he often like, you know, like come like down to the hotel at 3 a.m. when I was there, and like he'd talk on his phone with like his boyfriend in like America or Australia. Oh no, he's speaking in English. They'll be like, you know,
fuck my face, drop that shit.
Me over, grab my waist, arch my back and fuck my face.
he was talking his whole business. Like it was literally like reading like a sex novel when he was there. Like he really told you like everything like he was going to do to his boyfriend when his boyfriend came back to Tokyo. And he always came with like these boxes too when he gave these nasty comments. He used to give me like these big boxes. And they're like, you know, the size, I'll say that each one was about like 50 kilos, about 100 pounds. And like, he's like, I want to ship these back to Osaka. I'm like, okay, this is kind of weird. Why is this guy buying all this stuff where he could just buy it in Osaka? Why is he buying it in Tokyo? Is it like only designer goods and stuff? But later did I find out when the police showed up, he was stealing. Like he'd like steal from stores, ship these things back to Osaka, and then sell them. So again, the police had to talk to me, and they came again to check our video footage because we later found out that not only did he steal from stores, but he's also stealing from customers. So he'd actually, like, when everybody was asleep, he'd, like, walk around the capsule hotel and, like, find things. People kind of, like, you know, people are drunk. They kind of leave their stuff everywhere. And, like, he'll steal things from people. So, again, we had to show the police the video footage, which my boss didn't want to show, showing him, you know, stealing stuff. So, basically, there's that guy who's stealing stuff. There's a guy who manhandled women. And then we had this other customer. He said he was, like, a government employee, so we should let him do what he wants. And like he was nice to me, like as a foreigner, like he spoke fluent English, and like he always be like talking to me and shit. But then like he was really cool, you know. He was down and he was very friendly, and he liked to like chill with people and like talk about his life working overseas and all his mistresses, whatever he had overseas, like I cared. But anywho, this guy, another manhandling situation, he actually like he was like sexist, like every time he checked into the hotel, which was like every day because he came daily. I think he was home. I don't think he worked for the government. I think he was just a little bit knockers. I think it was crazy. But he was like always trying to grab women's breasts. Like he like literally like try to grab their breasts. But like, you know, in Japan, people aren't confrontational here. So like the boss wouldn't do anything about it. He handled that one old John. Like he beat up that old man and, you know, that stuff. But he would never confront this guy. And like, it took like one district manager who came in one time to fill in for me, and she got grabbed. She actually called the police and got him arrested. So this is like 4 people right now getting arrested in this hotel. This was actually the night before I quit. So it was a couple days before I started my new job. And, you know, I think a couple of my coworkers were kind of not really happy that I was leaving during like a busy time of the year, which makes sense. But as revenge, one of my coworkers actually put me on shift by myself between 5 p.m. and 8 p.m. And and there's only one other staff there besides me, which was a part-time student. So she was only there between, I think, 5 and 6. So after 6 p.m. would come around, I would have been by myself. So imagine like dealing with like check-in, check-in, and like customer complaints or what other things might happen during that time. During that 3-hour period, I was by myself. And you know, it was my last week, so I was taking it easy, you know, enjoying my time, you know, saying goodbye to my coworkers, and just it was a nice, you know, get together, a nice, just a good farewell for me. And I was like, you know, if I get through these next 2 days, I will be free and I could do what I want to do in my next job. So it was, you know, the day of, it was like right at 4:55, we had this big group of American tourists coming in to check in. It was like, I think like 20 people came, like this huge group of American tourists. They're all students at that time. They came like on a school trip and they were staying with us. And I was like, okay, well, you know, I'll check them in and see what happens. So I checked all of them in. They rode the elevator and went down to their floors. And then all of a sudden, like, we just started getting a bunch of phone calls. I was like, why is the phone ringing? Like, so I had her answer the phone while I was checking in some other people. And supposedly the phone call, kind of like a horror movie, was coming from inside the hotel. And we're like, why is this phone person calling from inside the hotel? This is weird. And later we found out was that the elevator, actually both elevators stopped working at once in this hotel. And I remember just being like kind of shook, like, what do you mean they stopped working? Like, yeah, it's not working. So she went to go check on them, and what happened was like something with like the rail, like, I don't know, like, you know, the little cord stopped working. And like the thing that was scary about it was that the person calling about the elevator was actually trapped inside the elevator. So supposedly there's like 6 people trapped in both elevators.
Oh, okay. We are stuck. Hank, can you...
The other thing that was bad too is that people who were trapped in the elevator were actually like in like pajamas. Like they were actually getting ready to go take a bath. So like one guy was like straight up in like, you know, just his like, you know, like shorts and like t-shirt, and like he had a towel. Like he didn't have any like real shoes on. So it was like in the middle of winter. So even if he wanted to like take the emergency exit or get out, he really couldn't because he was like trapped in there and like he's like, you know, house clothes. The check-in for our hotel was on the 10th floor of this building. And the building wasn't new at all. It was like over like 50 years old. And the only thing we did was remodeled the inside, remodeled the outside to make it look more modern. So we actually had to call the engineers to come check and see what was going on in the hotel. And one we had to do, so there was only 2 of us on staff at this time, right? And she was about to leave. So I was like, girl, you can't leave me here by myself. Like, I can't do this all by myself. So she ended up staying a little longer. And what she did is she went downstairs and she held a sign telling customers that they need to come up. And a lot of customers were just like pissed off. Like, you know, because of course, you know, you don't want to come to a hotel after a long day's of work or a long day's journey and have to walk up like 8 to 9 flights of stairs to check in and then walk back down. And the thing that made this worse though is the stairwell connected to the actual lobby that you had to, like the emergency exit. You actually had to go through the women's shower room and the women's like bathroom. So you couldn't really like, so we had to like be careful when people came through. So what happens when people were coming up to go and check in, I had to like lead them in groups, or she had to lead them in groups. So we kind of switched in between. So what she would do is she would come up with one group, leave the rest of the people downstairs, guide them through the women's bathroom to make sure there's no creeps sneaking on women up in there. And then I'll check them in, or she would check them in, then we'll just switch and do the same thing again. So about an hour passed of this and like no one showed up. Like the elevator people didn't show up. I called my manager, he didn't show up. And like the Americans were so pissed off about this situation. Like it was a mess. Like the elevator just stopped working. And if you actually look up the hotel reviews on TripAdvisor, the Americans actually did write reviews like this, you know, crap hotel, you know, and they're like, you know, crappy service and like, you know, the elevator breaking, let's have to walk up 9 flights of stairs. It was like a really bad situation. And I remember that was like, I was like, thank God, this is my like day before my last. Like, I just can't wait to get out of this shithole of a job. And, you know, around like 8 p.m., of course, on schedule, my coworkers all showed up in a group of 4 and they started working, and they expected me to stay late. And this is like me after coming in to work like at 7 a.m. I was like, why the hell would I stay working while you're all up here, like, just like, you know, talking and expect me and this part-time girl to still stay late to take care of the clients. So, and yeah, that place was a shit show. I don't ever want to go back there again. Like, I did have light at the end of the tunnel, you know. I did quit the job and I have a better position now. And, you know, I don't think I'm kind of glad that, you know, I don't have to worry about these people, like crazy people. Like, you never think that, like, when you come to Japan, you think like people will be polite, they'll be safe, you're not going to get robbed. You'll see these stories on YouTube about people putting down their wallet and coming back. No, there's crazy people here. They'll rob your ass. Like, they don't care. Like, I didn't really like working there. It was a shit job and like shit people and customers who committed crimes. No, but that was like the hotel job I had. That was like from hell. And yeah, just wanted to TV little story. I actually thought about this the other day when I was in an old elevator, and I was like, oh yeah, hopefully he doesn't get stuck like that last time when I worked at that job where those poor souls were trapped in there for a couple hours because no one came to help them. Well, anyways, that's the story time today. It's about my shitty hotel situation. Thank you.